training? Well, just out in the chat box, has anybody ever heard of Sandler training prior to today? Maybe I could just get a yes or no in the chat box for everybody if you've ever heard of it. We got Kim has heard of it. Yay for all y'all. Rita, Kim, anybody else has heard of Sandler training? There was a real good response to people hearing about Sandler training last week at the golf tournament. Previously, up until this summer, Sandler training was in Vancouver for the last 30 years. And then that gentleman retired from Sandler training, and Lucy and I have expanded down into the Lower Mainland. So both of our boys go to Simon Fraser. Both of our boys play on the Simon Fraser soccer team. And so we thought, hey, what better a time to expand our business is during a pandemic. Let's do it. So we've kind of slotted in to fill in the void in the Lower Mainland. And my only plug for today would be, if you saw any value out of today, if you saw anything that you wanted to talk additionally with me, just reach out, connect on LinkedIn, message me. I'd be happy to have a conversation with you. Most people don't know that Sandler Training is actually one of the world's largest sales management, and inside customer service training companies. We've been around for decades. However, we're not as popular or maybe not as branded as things like Dale Carnegie, for example. So there's some of our brag stats, and I usually just kick it off by saying, you know, we were recently selected for Harvard's MBA program. So I kind of say, hey, if we're good enough for Harvard, we might be good enough for you, okay? That's not to be bragging about it. It's just that sales is our sweet spot, the economic engine, where if you think about it, if we drive revenue and we drive profits, typically companies are in good positions. So that's the topic for today. Now, if you've ever been exposed to Sandler in any way, shape, or form, you'll know our famous book, which was written back in the early 80s. It's a crazy title, but it's actually one that we're passionate about. That most of us have gone to school or taken a lot of training to be great at things that we do in our lives. Unfortunately, sales training is often slotted into that, hey, should be get a nugget and you should be able to master sales. Or people think that people are born salespeople, and they really don't systemize it. So my goal here today will be to give you some awareness, impart some knowledge. It'd be very difficult to do any skills or role playing. And certainly we're not going to master it all here today, just the same way you didn't learn how to ride a bike at a seminar. So can I just get a GI in the chat box? That's just for got it, so that everybody can clearly understand that they got it. GI, just a GI in the chat box. Because I don't want to disappoint you here today to think that I'm going to fix everything. In fact, studies show within 72 hours of taking a seminar, or actually a lot of training, you're typically back to the bad habits in less than 72 hours. That's not a Sandler thing, that's just a science thing. That's why we get our yellow belt and our black belt, and it takes some time. So a lot of us have just kind of defaulted into sales, and we were successful along the way. And you can find out more about me on my LinkedIn connection. However, I've been selling pretty well my whole life, and I've been training through Sandler Training since 1997. And I've been running our practice up here in the Thompson, Okanagan for the past 12 years. So with our expansion down to the Lower Mainland, we're looking forward to connecting with people that think sales is pretty important to them as well. It's obviously important to you because you've taken the time to invest and be here today. So I just would say, just participate in the chat. And if there's anything after today that might help you, we've extended a special offer to you folks. You can sign up there at that link. And basically you can get access to white papers, podcasts, some webinars, some videos. We're just giving that out to everybody in these times of uncertainty. We believe if people are, transacting more and the business is healthy, that's just good for the economy as we get out of this thing slowly but surely. So feel free to take us up on that offer. If you want that link after, we'll send it to Sumner, and you can go ahead and link up to us with podcasts and white papers. So warm-up round, just in the chat box. if you don't mind, we're all in this together in terms of selling out of this. Can you just in the chat box share with me, why did you sign up for this today? What is something that appealed to you in selling in times of uncertainty? I just want everybody to put something in there that I can make sure that I attend to in some way, shape, or form. What got you here today? What got you here, and what about your curiosity about selling in times of uncertainty? Just go ahead in the chat box. Is it prospecting? Is it to grow your business? Oh my gosh, Kurt, to grow the business from, I'm sorry, Ilya, understanding the current challenges with COVID. Kim, if you can expand on that, is it, you know, I don't want to put you on the spot, but is it selling through COVID or just adjusting how you sell? If you don't want to type that in the chat or unmute, it would be fantastic.
Well, I guess business goes on regardless of what's happening. So it's always, and right now, I guess times are more uncertain than usual. So be a great skill to have. Okay,
thank you. I really appreciate that. Everybody, a polite golf clap. That was fairly brave of you to go first. So thank you. Okay, awesome stuff there from Kim about on the phone. So we're going to talk about a lot of that stuff here today. So I'll keep as interactive as I can. I'll try to cut off at the end for Q&A just to make sure that we're respecting the time of everybody. Awesome stuff. This is great. I love it. I appreciate it. A major chip on my soldier wheel sales that I need to get over. Bill, wow, brave. Bill, you win a trip for 2 to Walnut Grove. Give it up for Bill. That's awesome. The S word. Sometimes there's a chip, you know, not to go down a rabbit hole here, but Bill, like, I get it. Like, sales is not typically something we're running around going, hey, you know, I want to be a salesperson. I don't know if that's where Bill's going, but we'll go there today a little bit because that's awesome stuff. The problem is we've all been victims of bad salespeople, fair? So if that's what's happened to us, we don't want to be like that person. Okay, I get it. Thanks, Bill. Really awesome. So thanks for everybody for typing in, and away we go here. Listen, just remember that all crisis is temporary. This too shall pass. I was crazy enough to start up my Sandler business in September of 2008. If anybody wants to remember that, that was the Great Recession. This is totally different than that. However, what I'm suggesting and saying is that eventually we got through it. Eventually we got through it. I'm not saying things are easier this time around. I'm probably going to say they're harder, but the real professional salesperson is emerging in these times of adversity. And really the word of the day I would give to everyone here today is adapt. Adapt. Are you adapting? Not weekly or monthly right now. You know, this could be daily. You know, COVID was really forcing our clients to adjust daily, because what happened was we were all impacted, and what we're saying now today in September maybe is not what we were saying to our clients and our prospects even a week ago, even a month ago, depending on where you're selling, globally, nationally, provincially, whatever it might be. So just remember, it will pass. It may be a little harder to get through this one. So if you don't mind in the chat, how is your current sales momentum? What do I mean by that? Is it pretty great? You know, we're in IT, it's great. We're actually doing really well right now, it's great. Or perhaps it's average, you know, we're just kind of holding our own. Or perhaps maybe it's poor right now. I just want to get an idea on your sales momentum. What does it look like in there in terms of the pipeline and opportunities and transacting with other people? If you're brave enough to type that in, that would be awesome. It's okay, good, poor, pretty usual. Okay, good. So it's not fatal. It's good. And what we're typically finding is that not everybody is in a bad situation. Some people are doing really well, strangely enough. And so others got hit a lot harder. And you know, some almost devastated. But we really got to think that we've got to keep moving in terms of transacting with other people. So if you still have a market there to exploit and go after, we'll talk about that here today. So if we think about where we want to start off today, I'm just going to highly recommend you take some notes, because some of the stuff you might want to go back and revisit again. And that's our success triangle in Sandler. And that's where I'm just going to go quickly, and then we'll get into more of the content. But I got a challenge for each of you. On our success triangle, we have attitude at the top, we have behavior in the lower left, and we have technique in the lower right. I want you to just type in the chat box your best guess on the one here that you really can't train. Which one of those can't you train? Attitude, behavior, or technique? Go right ahead and give me just a quick one. Aha, this is good. Bill is cooking with gas there. Bill, attitude. That is the correct answer. So as much as you can influence somebody else's attitude, you can't really train it. You can't really train it. They get to possess and pick their attitude that they have around not just anything in sales, but anything in life, really. And then we're going to talk about behaviors that in selling in times of uncertainty, what is the behaviors that we need to be doing as successful sales professionals? And then I'm also going to spend some time to talk about technique as well, because that's critically important, right? That's what we would say in Sandler is really being prepared, strategies and tactics that I'm going to deploy from a technique standpoint. But I got some good news, I got some bad news for you, right? So the good news is I've got technique for everything. The bad news is if your attitude's bad, it isn't going to work. So change your attitude, change everything. We've all heard that. And in these times of uncertainty, I think it's really important that we're not really spending enough time on that. So, if my attitude is that, LinkedIn's not going to work for me, well, we know that typically you'll go out of your way to prove that to be correct. Okay. However, if I change my attitude, I change the expectations, then I might have a better outlook and belief system, which is what I want to make sure we talk about, is that's really the self-fulfilling prophecy right there. So as we explore things here today, please don't throw tomatoes at me. I want you to think about the intent. If you're writing anything down, is the intent I'm saying, not the content. So if you say, oh, I would never say something like that to somebody, I'll say, well, that's okay. How would you like to say it? So please, everybody, can I get it in the chat box? A GI forgot it. That intent is more important to me than content, okay? Intent versus content. So the first stop we need to take is we need to talk about the importance of attitude. Because you see, if I've got good behaviors and pretty good technique, but I'm kind of the person that's going through the motions. If I'm told to make some dials, or if I'm told to reach out on LinkedIn or send out some emails, prospecting, and I do it with some pretty good technique, but I don't believe in it, those are the people that kind of go through the motions. They're the people that go through the motions. They tick the boxes for the sake of ticking the boxes. Now, I wouldn't believe anybody here would be like that, because you obviously have an attitude that you want to be here and be better with in selling in times of uncertainty. But these are the kind of companies where we run into people that their attitude pre-COVID was, oh, look at all the leads, and this is awesome, this is great. And then all the leads dried up and the inbound inquiries dropped off. And then the person went to them and said, well, what about if we got on the phone or we tried to prospect and went after some of the other businesses out there? And the attitude of the sales rep is, I'm not doing that. I'm not cold calling. I'm not prospecting. And so now the boss says, well, I need you to do this. And then they go to do it, but they're really ticking the boxes and going through it. Okay, can I get an okay in the chat box that just you understand what I'm talking about there? And I don't believe anybody here is going through the motions. But I need you to understand that we run into this every day in our practice. Now, here's the importance of behavior. You know, I could have a great attitude and pretty good technique, but I'm not doing things consistently with my behaviors. So now I'm frantically trying to bring in deals, trying to bring in business. And the problem can be that this is the salesperson that feast or famine. They're the roller coaster salesperson. Because what happens is there's so much pressure on the technique that they're frantically. These are the busy salespeople. They're not the productive, consistent salespeople. Can I get an okay in the box? Everybody got that? By the way, I have a habit of telling you sometimes not what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. So it's a little bit of tough love sometimes. I used to be this type of salesperson. I had the attitude, don't worry about it. I'll bring in the deal. I'll get it at the end of the month. And I would pull it out sometimes. And then some months I didn't. So the importance of consistent behavior is paramount in these times of uncertainty. Now, I could be also the person who has a good attitude and behavior, but I don't have good technique. This is probably the worst one in many cases because this person works hard. They got great attitude. They want to work for you. They want to sell for you. And they're dialing and they're reaching out, but their emails are not correct. Their LinkedIn messaging is poor. Their phone call is horrible. And this is where we come in because we believe give me people with great attitudes and fantastic commitment to behavior and invest in those people with technique. Because that person is at least trying to win and they just need a little help with, we call them talk tracks or templates. You know, we don't believe in scripts. We believe in just figuring out what you've got to say in the situation, and you got to make sure your technique, especially in these times, has got to be absolutely the best. I mean, I'm not here to diss on the economy, but you know, the past few years, it was pretty easy to be successful in sales. You kind of just showed up, and if you didn't mess it up too bad, people kind of bought from you. Now, in the COVID era, there may be more competition or pressure in your industry. There might be more price pressure. Well, if I don't have the techniques to deal with those, that could have been my only shot. And now I've blown it. So can I get an okay in the chat box that everybody's okay with the quick little BAT triangle, BAT triangle? And I know we're all amongst friends here, but could you go ahead and just, let's all just have a moment of confession. Could you just give me a letter that you think you've got to work on? Is it A, changing your attitude? Is it maybe B, and figuring out some behaviors? Or is it T, and more technique? I just like to see everybody give me a letter in there so I get in a feel. All of them. Oh my gosh, Kim, too hard on yourself. All of them. But pick a B or an A or a T. It's really critical that you figure out. T from Rita, that's awesome. T from Rona, awesome, great. That's where we'll go a little bit more in depth today. I tell you about the BAT triangle. So if you ever meet anybody from Sandler, you just go like that to them. It's pretty funny. I was in that Starbucks lineup in Vancouver Airport one time on a trip, and I was wearing my Sandler golf shirt. I don't know if anybody's ever been in that Starbucks lineup at the Vancouver Airport pre-COVID. It was, you know, it was about from Langley to North Van. And this gentleman looked at me and he goes, "Hey, Sandler." And he went like that. So he was like a veteran and he knew the triangle. So please do me a favor. Every day you get up as a sales professional, would you take your inventory? In Sandler, we call this your batting average. Your batting average, your behavior, your attitude, and the technique you're going to work on for the day. And that's what the pro does. They figure out their attitude's got to be, I'm going for it. Here's what I'm going to do, and here's how I'm going to do it. And that in our world is our Sandler success triangle. But you got to feel good about yourself. You got to feel good about prospecting and managing the pipeline and the company and the opportunity out here. If you don't go in with that abundance mentality and that winning mentality, your prospects can smell that a mile away. So to work on your attitude, make sure you're working on yourself. Is your competition still there? Are there opportunities in other markets? Making sure that your attitude is in check about how you feel about yourself and the opportunities is a great way to start and re-engage yourself each day. Okay, to make sure that you're there and you know exactly what you're going to deploy. So there are the elements of the ideal attitude, right? It's a commitment. It's a desire to go. The outlook is that I see the donut, not the hole. And I accept responsibility for the actions I take or don't take at the end of the day. I was recently coaching a student this afternoon, and we were, he was going on about time management, and it really, if you think about that old quote, I forget who it's from, it's you don't really have a time management problem, you have a discipline problem, right? There's always something better than getting rejected. It's human nature. And sales is filled with lots of rejection. But it's the person that picks themselves up and keeps moving is typically separating that successful salesperson from the unsuccessful. The unsuccessful just gives up. It's just full of blame, excuse, and denial. And listen, I know we're all through tough times through COVID. Listen, believe me, I've had some sleepless nights myself. But what are we doing to keep moving? That's the key. Keep moving forward and learning from the failures that you might have had yesterday to change the behavior or the technique so I don't repeat that again as a consistent streak in my efforts. All right, on to behavior. A couple Sandler rules up there. Which one do you like, number 1 or number 2? Go ahead in the chat box. Do you like number 1 or number 2? There's the 2 Sandler rules I put up there for you. I like to see, sometimes we get splits here. So what do you, number 1 or number 2? Oh, look, tie 2, okay. Yeah, never manage your numbers, manage your behavior. Well, if you think about it, if you look at your spreadsheet at the end of the month and you go up, and the sales don't go up, it just doesn't happen. So I need you to make sure you write something down here, which is really important. You can't make people buy. You can influence them or persuade them, but you can't make people buy. You can influence them. So if I can't really control the result, I can influence it, then I really can only control the things that I do. So when Sandler, what we mean by that is behavior that you do is the leading indicator. The results is the lagging indicator. So I want to make sure we explore this a bit today, because quite often we're finding, especially in these times of uncertainty, people just are not doing enough of the behaviors. They're not doing enough of the behaviors. They're aggressively waiting for the phone to ring. I'll repeat, they're aggressively waiting for the phone to ring. I know, LOL from Bill. Thank you, Bill. It's essentially not a place you want to be. Now listen, I understand rejection and fear of that phone and fear of people saying no. However, that's just the reality of sales. There's going to be way more no's than yeses. We'll talk about that a bit today. But the only thing you can control is that attitude that, you know what? I'm going to send out 50 LinkedIn messages today. And I'm expecting of the 50, 40 are going to not connect with me. But you know what? 10 might. So Am I going to prepare to risk 40 no's to get 10 maybes? I don't know. Some people will, some people won't. It's how we react to that rejection and rebound is the key. So remember, don't manage the results. Results will take care of themselves if I manage to do the behaviors. Okay? There we are. Don't focus on those results. You need to work on technique and tactics to influence them. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I can't make people buy. People buy for their reasons on their time, and we don't want to be that pushy salesperson anyways. So we'll talk about that as we go forward, because qualifying opportunities is almost as important as prospecting for opportunities. You know, a lot of pipelines are filled with opportunities. They're not going to go anywhere. But people feel good that they sent a quote or a proposal. Yeah, I know I'm scaring you there with the daily behavior, but it's a daily behavior, right? Think of the things you do as a behavior now every day. You get up, you shower, you brush your teeth, you do all these things in routine and behaviors that you would just naturally do. Yet when we audit a lot of sales teams, they don't have a behavioral plan. We'll talk about that in a second, but it really doesn't need to be more than what you're comfortable with doing, okay, and the frequency of it. So if you have an audience that's on LinkedIn and you could get to them, why wouldn't you put that into your daily behavior? You know, if cold calling is something you're okay doing or you need to do, that should be in your behavior. So we'll talk about that as we go forward, but you got to start thinking about daily behaviors. And in times of uncertainty, folks, we got to redefine what a win is. We got to redefine what a win is. And I'm going to talk about that in a couple of minutes, but I think there's too much pressure on salespeople these days to think that they got to bring home every deal. But sometimes a win could be simply that they have agreed to have a Zoom meeting with you. Maybe the new win is that they've agreed to have you come over for a coffee. So the expectations, I'm not saying we got to settle, but we got to manage and figure out what a real win is in your world going forward. Now, people always ask me, well, John, sales is just a numbers game. And I say, yeah, it absolutely it is. What are your numbers? And they say, what? Well, I said, if you just said sales is a numbers game, what are your numbers? And they don't have an answer. And I'm not here to throw tomatoes back at you. Some of you have got this down, but these are the things you need to take down, and you need to start tracking these. You know, the number of prospecting attempts, if you're looking for new business, if you're here today to think about prospecting, it's not the number of attempts. Number of attempts. You know, number of conversations that you've had. Okay? In a prospecting arena. How many people did you talk to? How many conversations did you have with the decision maker? There's a difference between number 2 and number 3. Some people are really good at talking to the gatekeeper, but they never get through to the person that makes the conversations and the decision makers. I'm sorry, number 4. So that's the person that just always is talking to the wrong person that can't pull the trigger. So if we're tracking these as prospecting metrics, if you are here today and your job is to go find new business, you need to own this screen. And you need to track this and measure this, because this is where technique comes in. But could everybody do me a favor in the chat box? Which one of those are you ultimately in control of? You. Which one are you in control of there? Which one are you in control of? Thanks you. It's number 1. Your desire to pick up and risk rejection is number 1. And many people won't in these times of uncertainty. Well, if we're going to hope and pray things come back to pre-COVID, I don't know. I just don't think hoping and praying is a good strategy. I don't think it is. It works for a lot of things. I don't think it works really well in sales. So I think if we just all have a mindset that we got to figure out number 1, that's what I want you to start thinking about. Oh, and the last one is number of appointments that are booked. My apologies, 5. So steal that screen, track those down, and then just go. And we'll talk about techniques and outreach in a second here. So, question into the chat box. Do you have your ideal client templated? Templated, is it written down and I would know who your ideal client is that you're after? Just a simple yes or no into the chat box would be appreciated. If you have an ideal client mapped out and profiled. Yes or no in the chat. And what do I mean by that? The characteristics, the demographics of the person you would like to do business with. I'm just going to suggest to you, this is the time to update it. This is the time to get sticky with it. And here are some of the questions that you need to be asking yourself. Because obviously, if you can't figure out who your ideal is, why would we go hunting and prospecting when we can't really articulate that? So I want to make sure when you're giving your elevator pitch or your 30-second commercial to people, this is the real piece that's important. Because when we're looking for introductions and referrals from people, well, I want to be able to get this off my mouth in a pretty easy way. You know, for example, my ideal client is a serious business owner or individual that is committed to growing in their sales. Most of my clients have at least 10 employees. They have 10 years in business and they have a bricks and mortar or an office of some sort. Now, how would I know that? Because I've looked at my typical clients. Now, I work with individuals all the time, mortgage brokers, realtors, financial advisors, but typically it's 10, 10, and bricks and mortar. So can I get a GI in the chat box for a got it that you understand who you serve and how you help them? And this is just a quick little way we do it. We do hours of work on this, but please don't go prospecting and thinking everybody's going to do business with you. You got to narrow this down. Okay. And now we have to take care of your business. You need to take care of your business as we go forward after today. I need you to start thinking about the clients you absolutely need to keep. Your keep clients. Keep clients are people that are doing business with you today under your terms and conditions that you enjoy. They pay you on time. You know, there's a good relationship. They value it. Now, they only go into the keep box if you can't sell them anything more. Okay? They're fully saturated. They buy everything from you. If they don't, it's amazing to me right now, there's a lot of clients where we could expand the relationship. So in order of places you should be going as a sales professional, get your keep strategies down first. Make sure you figure out the clients you love and you want to continue to do business with, but have you maximized all opportunities? If you haven't, I challenge you to go and think about the clients that you could expand the opportunity. Perhaps there's other branches, perhaps there's other locations, maybe other products. Right under your nose could be expansion opportunities. So keep and expand. Now, some of you have been around for years and you've got recapture accounts. People that stopped doing business with you, but maybe they would want to come back to you. At least they did business with you at one point. A lot's changed. COVID changed a lot of things. Excuse me. So maybe we go after some recapture accounts. Through COVID, I personally picked up 3 pieces of business from recapture accounts. I just picked up the phone and said, hey, haven't talked to you in a little while. How are you doing through COVID? They said, oh man, that'd be great to have a coffee with you. Went and had a coffee. 3 people said, let's start working together again. So please, in order, keep, expand, recapture. And now the bad news. You know, some of you don't have a recapture list. Perhaps you're a startup and you're in that attain category. That's the nasty, building the business, tons of rejection, business development, and attain. That's that prospecting a lot because you don't have a lot of built up relationships. So once again, you know the drill. Into the chat box. Which letter needs your attention with your clients? Is it a K? Is it an A? Is it an R or an E? Go ahead and give me which letter is going. Bill's got an A. Okay. Bill's fast on the keyboard here today. Thanks, Bill. Let's see what other letters have come in. Anybody else? K, A, R, or E? Do we have any other brave volunteers? Going once, twice. Okay. So how do you define a win in this current environment? Don't need that in the chat box, but I want to pose that to you. Once again, talking about prospecting, remember, you might want to write this down, that prospecting is not selling. Prospecting is not selling. Okay? Prospecting is just reaching out to see if there's an opportunity with somebody. And so a win could be that somebody just accepts your LinkedIn connection. Perhaps they agree to have a coffee with you. Perhaps they agree to let you come in and tour their facility or look at some drawings or whatever industry you're in. But please, can we start to make sure we understand when you prospect, if you're in that attain category, or when you talk to your recapture accounts, what is the win? What is the win? Because if it's all the pressure that you think you're going to sell something to somebody, people can smell that pressure a mile away. So please redefine what a win looks like in your world today. So let's move over to technique in the time that we've got left together, because remote selling is not going away. As a matter of fact, I think somebody typed in that selling on the phone is really difficult, and that is absolutely true. The phone has come back in to be so important these days, and some folks don't want you to come meet with them anymore. So if we have to adjust to best practices on remote selling, I'm just going to whip through some of the 6 top things that you need to be thinking about as you go forward, because a lot of my meetings don't happen in person anymore. I still have to sell, but I have to be really good now on the digital meeting. You know, really important is to set up your pre-call strategies. Pre-call strategies, whether you're going face-to-face or online. But here are the 6 top mistakes people are making when it comes to remote selling. So not enough bandwidth. I'm sure the lady from TELUS can help us here. For example, relying on the Wi-Fi versus a dedicated plugged-in connection. Not using the calendar invite before it begins as a selling tool. So getting the invite before it begins as a reminder that it's going to start in 30 minutes or 1 hour. Not getting distractions out of the way. You know, making sure your phone is off. Nothing more irritating than something going off on your phone when you're engaged in this meeting with somebody via webinar. And what's really important to make sure we think about as you go forward is not checking your look. I know everybody was in their track pants and pajamas for the last couple of months, but I think that the professional appearance or the appearance that you bring to the table is very important in those meetings. Not setting up the video, right? We all know that 55% of communication with other people is body language, okay? 38% is tone, and 7% are the words. So if we can get people engaged on the video and you go first, it's a really good sign. And then last but not least is not following a system when you're in that meeting with the prospect. Not figuring out what are the top things that they want to talk about in that meeting so you're prepared in advance. Not fumbling for collateral and PowerPoints, making sure that it's all been established prior to that to follow your system. Now, considering social selling as a point of topic for today, as a technique, you know, what we're finding out there is that email and direct messages you know, they shouldn't be longer than War and Peace. You should be making sure that you've got a short subject line, a quick introduction and purpose. If you've ever heard of pain is a Sandler term. These are the motivators of why people would buy from you, to get their curiosity of why they would want to talk to you further. And then maybe some unique selling proposition of how you've helped others on those pains. And then when I audit people's emails and LinkedIn messages, it's very weak with the ask. So making sure that there's an ask in the email, the ask for an opportunity to have an introductory phone call, the ask to be an opportunity to perhaps get together and have a meeting. So really make sure it has a good intro, a good body, and a great ask. And there's nothing wrong with a follow-up call, especially if you're deploying the direct messaging on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, where people leave you that information. It's a little trickier on email, but on LinkedIn, it's definitely a go-to way to use that. The pre-call checklist. You know, whether this is a video meeting or a face-to-face meeting, I find most salespeople's pre-call plan, there isn't one. It's a sip of a Tim Hortons double-double, and in they go. I mean, pilots usually go through a checklist before we take off. I think you should too. So what are you hoping to accomplish in the meeting? Who's going to be there participating? Should we be inviting other people? How much time is available for this meeting online or in person? What's the decisions we want to make at the end of that meeting? And is there a clear agenda of the items that they want to cover in that meeting? Now, I just said a few things there that sometimes get people's curiosity. It should be client-centric focused. It's not about you. If you think about the concept of pain and the concept of people's buying motives, it should be buyer-centric. Hey, I'm coming over. What's on the agenda? What are the top 3 things you want to cover in our meeting? You get to tell them all about your great stuff after. So think about it. The doctor doesn't practice malpractice. The doctor goes in to discover, and making sure that they do this and discover what it is you want or need and whether I can help you. So please steal that pre-call checklist, whether you do Zoom meetings or face-to-face. Your salespeople should be able to come back and answer those questions. They should be able to answer those questions if it's really about the buyer. And in these times of uncertainty, it's even more important to make it more buyer-centric, because the buyers may be more skeptical. Should I do this or shouldn't I do this? Should I switch suppliers or not? They're as uncertain as you are. So it's really got to be about them. Now, post-call is also important, whether it's a remote Zoom or face-to-face. Can you answer these questions? Did we find out the pains, the problems, the issues, the challenges, or the goals, the dreams, and the desires that they wanted? Do we have a viable solution for this? Do they actually have the time and the money to work with us? And what did we clearly decide was going to happen next? And what if that doesn't happen? Now, those last 2 sometimes rattle people. You know, I call it PCS, polite Canadian syndrome. Like a lot of salespeople leave a meeting and there was no decided outcome. And then everybody is mystified about what happens next. It sounds something like this. Well, I'll leave it with you. Call me if you have any questions. Or you know where to find me if we need to talk further. So just don't want to be pushy. We don't want to be aggressive. We want to be powerfully polite. We want to be nurturingly assertive though. And if we're there anyways, we might as well decide if there's something to do forward or not. It's amazing how many salespeople leave a meeting and the best they did is they left a brochure behind. That's not professional selling. Sorry, my apologies. For those of you that are gutsy enough to pick up the phone, I just took the luxury of giving him my script, and it's up on the board. So that's all I'm doing when I make a dial these days, folks. You're happy to steal it. I'll unpack it for you here, and then I'll make sure we end on time to take some questions. But I'll just unpack it for you that I just say, hey, Joe, it's John Glennon calling. There's no company name, there's nothing. It's just John Glennon calling. Listen, have I caught you at a bad time, or do you have 2 minutes? Lately, I've been saying, have I caught you at a bad time? They say, what's this about? I say, well, listen, if you have 2 minutes, this is a cold call, and I hate making them, and I know you hate getting them. You can kick me to the curb in 2 minutes. Is that okay? Now, out of role play, don't throw tomatoes. That's content versus intent. But what do we all know? Most people don't like cold calls, and they don't like getting them. Fair? So why not have a little humor with it? The point I'm trying to make is I'm just being different than the traditional salesperson in asking for the time and the permission to talk to them for 2 minutes. Now, I just simply say, listen, I've been told it's been a crazy time to make sales calls, but here I am, and I'm continuing to work through this. Can I ask you, how are you and your sales team managing through the disruptions caused by COVID and the pandemic? So you just simply are being very clear and to the point. There's no pitch. There's no pitch in what I do and how I do it. I just say, hey, I've been told it's a crazy big time to making calls, but here I am. And I'm continuing to work through this. Can I just ask you, how are you and your sales team managing through this pandemic? The power there, folks, is to get that person speaking very quickly into the call. So just make sure that that last bullet there is for you. It's for you and it's customized so it sounds natural. And make sure that then they're just speaking. The last piece to this is don't be a run-on sentence. You know, at about 2 minutes into the call, if they're talking with you, just simply say, listen, I want to respect the 2 minutes. Did you still want to speak, or would you like me to call you back? Now, some of you are going to throw tomatoes saying, why would I ever do that to a motivated prospect? Because at Sandler, we're all about respect and courtesy. If they want to continue the conversation right now, I just censored myself and I got permission. If they say no, I get rescheduled and I come back and we continue the call. Sandler's all about the respect of the conversation with people. That's just a cold call template. Right now, these days, LinkedIn and cold calling, or that combination, seems to be the best strategy for business development when I work with my clients. Once again, aggressively waiting for the phone to ring is not a good strategy these days. So if I could, in the chat box, before I conclude and take some questions from folks, what's the one attitude, behavior, or technique that in our short time here together that you're taking away? If you could be kind enough in the chat box just to briefly put in what is one thing that you're taking away from the 54 minutes that you invested in being with us today, that would be really appreciated. It helps me with future webinars as well to know what's one thing that you're taking away. Is it care? Is it watching your BAT? Whatever it might be, that would be really appreciated. If you can type that in for me, that would be awesome. And while you're doing that, if you're looking for our LinkedIn book, we wrote a book on how to actually use LinkedIn properly. And so if you want a copy of that, you can just email Lucy. The coordinates are up there for her. And we would be happy to send you, it's an ebook. So just email Lucy, we'll send you the book, and you can put that into your repertoire. It's really good with templates and messaging and things to do and not to do to be really good at LinkedIn. If you're selling in the business to business community, you're absolutely crazy if you're not using LinkedIn these days. And then once again, our complimentary access to our website for podcasts and webinars, that's up there. And I want to make sure that you've got that access. We want to make sure we're giving that out to the community. And then for those of you that are keeners and you want to come crash a class online, those are the dates. We're doing those on a regular basis. It's live class. It's live students that are investing in themselves with me. If you want to attend, just reach out to us. Happy to have you as a guest. I'm an open book. I'm just serious about sales and economic engine. So if you want to come and crash, come on in. Thanks for the comments in the boxes, folks. And then, hey, listen, I'll see you around the Lower Mainland. I'll be the guy from the Okanagan driving in the fast lane with my signal on, driving everybody crazy. But we'll be down there quite a bit. We'll be down there supporting the Abbotsford Chamber, the Langley Chamber, the Surrey Board of Trade. So if there's anything you want to reach out to me after today, be happy to talk to you. With that, Sumner, I'm just going to try to censor myself here at 4:55-ish, and I'll take any questions from anybody for the next 5 minutes. So, Sumner, back over to you.
Thank you, John. That was great. Does anyone have any questions at all? No, it doesn't appear so. Well, thank you so much, John, and thank you so much to everyone who joined us today. We really appreciate it, and I hope everyone got some valuable information out of today.
Thanks,
and
Sumner.
You will be able to also find the recording at our website next week as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.